Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: IU Health Southern Indiana physicians, primary care and specialty care providers now accepting new patients in Bloomington and throughout South Central Indiana. siphysicians.org, IU Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, working to improve cybersecurity and provide policy guidance through partnerships with industry, government, and academia.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk, people are getting creative in an attempt to stop the spread of the invasive Asian carp.
Once you get past the step of their name and their look, now you gotta get to how to fillet them.
But if you get past that phase, would you eat it? Coming up, a tour of a carp processing plant that's considering all kinds of uses for the fish. Plus, it's a growing problem across the country, but particularly in Indiana: access to affordable dental care.
I wanted to be able to work and afford it, but I can't even afford it working.
Ahead, a look at volunteer efforts to get Indiana's most vulnerable children to the dentist. And it looks like a good time, but there's a lot going on in this after-school activity. Ahead, how teachers are using foam pipes to reinforce STEM skills and teach teamwork. Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from across the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Well, the state is trying to figure out how to get rid of a nuisance that's rapidly taking over its rivers and streams. Asian carp are a problem all over the Midwest. They're most well known as the fish that jump out of the water and into boats. But they're also an invasive species that's hurting Indiana's waterways. Reporter Barbara Brosier joins us now. Barbara, how does the state plan to get rid of them?
Well, they're still trying to figure that out, Joe. There is a lot of research being done, and there's no silver bullet, no easy solution to just get rid of Asian carp. But there are several ways to reduce the population. Some people think the best way is to eat them. When you're riding on a boat and they pop out of the water, they can be a pain in the neck, literally.
You could be having a peaceful moment on the river and all of a sudden you get smacked by a 12-pound fish upside the head.
But the most devastating damage Asian carp are doing is underneath the surface. They're an invasive species that reproduce rapidly, allowing them to quickly take over rivers and streams throughout the state. They eat plankton, which many of Indiana's native fish and mussels also rely on. That has scientists worried about the long-term health of the state's rivers, so they're searching for solutions.
So really comes down to, well, they're here, so what do we do with them? Well, this is one thing we could do with them. We can eat them.
Andrew Beltman is the assistant southern fish research biologist for Indiana's Department of Natural Resources. He's been eating Asian carp for 2 years and says it's quickly become one of his favorite fish.
It's really easy to fillet them out and make them boneless and be able to give it to your family. It's a good source of protein.
But that's something Beltman says few people realize. Most Hoosiers haven't even tried Asian carp.
I think that's the first thing people have to get past is the name. Yeah, it's a carp, but it's not like the common carp that are here.
The DNR is trying to educate Hoosiers about the benefits of eating Asian carp, even providing demonstrations on how to fillet the bony fish. Beltman thinks if more people started eating the fish, there would be a reason for commercial fishermen to start harvesting Asian carp.
It's kind of a developing thing where people are trying to get other people to eat them, so there's a demand for it. There's no really demand for it now, so commercial fishermen, there's really no point of them really keeping them or going out and fishing for them.
Here goes nothing.
It's probably pretty.
It doesn't taste like fishy at all.
If you travel further south to Kentucky, some commercial fishermen are focusing their efforts on catching Asian carp. Two Rivers Fishery invested $2 million to set up a processing plant along the Ohio River in 2013.
By the end of December 2014, we'd taken out in excess of 3.25 million pounds out of the waters.
Most of their products get shipped overseas to China. That's where the company's owner is from. There's a high demand there for frozen Asian carp, but it's not a very lucrative venture.
Different countries and different cuttings, the profit are different.
That's why Kentucky Fish and Wildlife is taking steps to incentivize Asian carp harvesting. The fish aren't worth much money because of the low demand, but the state will pay 5 cents more per pound for Asian carp if they're harvested out of certain reservoirs.
Once they get signed up for the program, they let us know they're going. We meet them at the boat ramp, verify that the fish came from that water, follow them to where they're going to sell their fish, and then we provide them with a ticket that says for X number of pounds of Asian carp that you harvested today, we're providing 5 cents per pound on top of what the processor just paid them for it.
They also hosted a commercial fishing tournament called Carp Madness in 2013, which helped remove more than 80,000 pounds of Asian carp from 2 lakes. They set up booths to show how to fillet and serve the fish. But the biggest problem to solve is still perception.
So many of us have that stuck in our brain that we don't want to try new things.
That has to change in order to create a domestic market for Asian carp, something wildlife experts say is crucial to reducing the population.
To really remove the number of fish that we need removed to have an impact, they need to create a domestic market. Because right now there is some domestic need for these fish, but that needs to scale up a bunch to get to the point where they'll be effective as a tool to decrease the population numbers.
Scientists are conducting research on whether certain chemicals could help reduce the Asian carp population, or if electrical barriers could stop them from expanding into larger bodies of water. But until they come up with a better solution, harvesting Asian carp is the best one states have.
If we can't get rid of them, then we're going to do our best to find whatever that middle ground is to be able to deal with them being here.
Now, there are some limitations in Indiana when it comes to harvesting Asian carp. The state doesn't allow the use of cast nets to catch anything more than bait fish, and that's how many commercial fishermen in other states end up catching Asian carp. Many Hoosiers who are targeting Asian carp try to catch them while bow fishing, and Joe, that's become increasingly popular over the past few years.
All right, thank you very much, Barbara. Indiana's Attorney General visited the IU campus this week to discuss the truths about human trafficking in America. Human trafficking is one of the largest organized crimes happening in our country, but it tends to fall under the nose of most communities where it occurs. As James Vavrick reports, many discussions are popping up around Bloomington's college campus to raise awareness of the serious crime.
Students met with Attorney General Greg Zoller this week to discuss the harsh realities of human trafficking in the United States. The month of April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and many of the discussions in Indiana are focusing more on human trafficking than in the past.
So we've now gone from denial, where people just didn't believe it, now to a kind of an understanding of the problem, even though a lot of people still don't want to address it. It's a tough thing to talk about. Commercial sex is not something that's easy to talk about in any audience.
Zoller listened to the students from the United Nations Association and other volunteer groups who shared some of their experiences with human trafficking. He says students have the biggest impact on stopping this sort of crime.
We're now in a position, I think, to bring in student leaders and others to really change the culture.
Efforts to raise awareness about human sex trafficking are increasing throughout the state. Former victim of human trafficking, Rhonda Patterson, travels to share her story with students. Patterson is the founder of the Unslaved Campaign, a name that reflects the experiences that she and many other women have faced.
Our presentations basically informs the information of trafficking here in the United States, the hidden part of human trafficking that no one wants to know about.
Rhonda and her team met with students at Indiana University at the beginning of April. Their presentation showed the shocking statistics that human trafficking has on our country and state. While many countries are placed on a grading scale for their crime rates related to human sex trafficking, the United States hasn't been on the scale for years.
We are now in it, but of course we get an A, but we're still the 5th largest country in the world when it comes to trafficking.
Rhonda and her team are beginning production for a documentary about human trafficking, which is set to release sometime this summer. Daniel Walker, the producer of the documentary, feels inspired by Rhonda's story to bring awareness to the same issues she fights.
When parents and different groups get excited or passionate about a certain topic, that topic suddenly falls on the judiciary plate. And that's what we're hoping to do with this documentary, show legislation that this is a valuable issue, this is a vital issue, and it's more than a political issue. It's an issue of human worth, it's an issue of human value, and as leaders in this country, we want them to be concerned about that.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm James Vavrick.
According to the International Labor Organization, human trafficking is a lucrative business, earning profits of about $32 billion each year. Now for headlines, we go over to Barbara Brosier, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. Planned Parenthood is asking a federal court to strike down Indiana's new anti-abortion law. The women's health care organization, represented by the American Civil Liberties Union, filed a lawsuit seeking to block the measure that bans abortions performed because of the fetus's sex, race, or potential disability. It also requires aborted fetal remains to be either buried or cremated, and they can't be disposed of as medical waste.
We're already here in Indiana, one of 4 states that's listed as most hostile toward women exercising their rights to reproductive justice. We find this law abysmal, it is intrusive, it is dangerous, it is failed public health policy.
Governor Mike Pence's office says he's confident the law is constitutional. Federal courts struck down 2 other Indiana abortion laws in the past 5 years. The Federal Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services is investigating if a part of HIP 2.0 creates a barrier to care. The question is over whether Hoosiers can make it to their appointments when the state doesn't cover the cost of transportation to get there. The study earlier this year by an independent evaluator found fewer than 6% of HIP 2.0 enrollees whose transportation wasn't covered by the program cited that as the reason they missed an appointment. Wisconsin's primary results make it increasingly likely that both Republican and Democratic candidates will have to spend time in Indiana before its May 3rd primary, the only presidential primary that week. Republicans Donald Trump and John Kasich and Democrat Hillary Clinton have already named their state leadership teams. Democrat Bernie Sanders has several campaign offices open around the state. Political analysts say to expect targeted ads, direct mail, and campaign calls to begin soon. Purdue is the latest Indiana college campus to be hit with a mumps outbreak. Health officials confirmed 5 probable cases this week. That brings the total cases on Indiana campuses to 50. Indiana University has 17 confirmed cases. Butler University has 24 confirmed cases, and IUPUI has seen 4 mumps cases since the beginning of this year. Hundreds filtered through the Martinsville High School gymnasium Tuesday, looking at displays and talking with Indiana Department of Transportation officials about the impact the final stretch of I-69 could have as it winds along State Road 37 to Indianapolis. Joe Wren reports.
Mooresville residents are thrilled NDOT's decision won't impact them.
It would go through our farm, yes. We've been there since 1910. Our children live on both sides of us. We have 100 acres, and we would have to move, and we couldn't even fathom that. I mean, you know, you don't even want to go there. So we're praising God it went on 37.
Others are faced with the reality that they may be forced to move.
We're okay. I mean, like my husband said, it's good both ways. If they come in and buy us out and we move, we'll go where it's warm. If they don't buy us out, fine, we'll stay there till the end.
And others are still left with questions about how close the interstate would come to their property.
We were interested to see where this project would go through and how close it would come to the cemetery because we've worked very hard to preserve it.
The property would be very near an interchange. So I guess the pie in the sky wish would be that property at some point in time would have be an attractive commercial concern.
NDOT officials say they can't finalize plans until they have a federal decision in early 2018.
Hoosiers may notice increased construction activity with nearly 800 highway projects in progress across the state. The Indiana Department of Transportation will widen I-69 from Fishers to Anderson. INDOT is also repaving 740 miles of highway and adding or redesigning 7 highway exits. There are also plans for new safety cables and highway medians and wider turning radiuses at some intersections. The money for the $850 million in road work was included in the 2-year budget approved last year and a supplemental road funding bill enacted last month. Some lawmakers say a new law limiting a judge's ability to reduce sentences for serious heroin or meth dealers undercuts efforts established during the state's criminal code reform. That overhaul gave judges more flexibility to suspend sentences, particularly of drug offenders. This was so judges could decide if prison or rehabilitation was a better option for the individual. But a new law passed last session that makes it so anyone with a previous drug dealing conviction will be sentenced to at least a decade in prison. The USDA is estimating that American farmers may plant more corn this summer than they have in other years. Indiana accounts for 2.6% of the national increase, but prices for corn could suffer. China announced it will begin selling off its huge corn stockpiles. China announced last week it'll move away from stockpiling corn and start selling its huge inventory. It's more than half of all the world's corn stores, almost enough to feed China for an entire year. The U.S. Grains Council says in a statement they were surprised by the timing of the move and will monitor its impact. Indiana is adding organic farms faster than the national average. The number of certified organic farms in Indiana increased 17% from 2014 to 2015, outpacing the national average of 12%. Despite the industry's double-digit growth, organic foods only make up about 5% of all U.S. food sales. The annual cost of owning and driving a vehicle in the United States has fallen to a 6-year low. According to AAA's 2016 Your Driving Cost study, it costs around $8,500 to own a car. This year, a driver can expect to spend around 57 cents for each mile driven. That adds up to a little over $700 each month. That number covers the fixed and variable costs associated with owning and operating a car. AAA officials credit falling gas prices for the driver savings. And if you're wearing an activity tracker, it may not be as accurate as you think. A study from Ball State University found that activity trackers work well for counting steps while walking or running and accurately show no steps during sedentary periods. However, step estimates were not accurate for household chores, and all monitors severely underestimated physical activity during cycling. Joe, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing that these aren't as accurate. I'm wearing one right now.
You know, I always wondered about that. Mine has a calibrate button. I probably need to use a little bit more often.
Yeah, get the accurate count of those steps.
That's right. Thanks, Barbara. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Hoosier kids are not getting the dental care they need. It's a particularly big problem in families that rely on Medicaid for health services. Coming up, a look at the problem and the long-term implications. And it looks like all fun and games as students in Bedford work to build roller coasters. But ahead we'll explain the skills this exercise is helping them master. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
We believe in the excitement of exploration, that life offers each of us adventures that are ours for the taking. We believe that children are born explorers who need trusted guides on their journeys of discovery. We believe in breaking new ground and in challenging assumptions, that important questions deserve to be explored deeply, fairly, and honestly. And we believe that who you are and where you come from should never stand in the way of what you want to be. This is who we are. This is what we believe. This is PBS.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. The Indiana Youth Institute reports over half of Indiana's children aren't getting the dental care that they need, and a recent federal report says the state's children on Medicaid are faring much worse. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Jill Sheridan takes a look at efforts to get more of the state's children into the dentist chair.
All right, this is my big flashlight. I'm going to shine that on your teeth, so show me those teeth.
Dr. Charles Gray is giving 9-year-old Eric a dental exam. The Marion County Health Department held free clinics in February. Angela Fitzgerald brought all 3 of her children to get cleanings, x-rays, and fluoride treatment. She used to be on Medicaid, but her coverage lapsed over a year ago.
I wanted to be able to work and afford it, but I can't even afford it working. So, with the health insurance, yeah, here we are.
When Fitzgerald was on Medicaid, they were able to visit every 6 months. But that's not the case for all children on Medicaid in Indiana. A recent report from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services found that almost 80% of children on Medicaid were not receiving all required dental services, and almost a third didn't visit a dentist at all. The data is from 2011 and 2012, but the dental health community perceives it to be an accurate picture of the situation today. Tooth decay is one of the most common chronic diseases for children, and 6% of Hoosier children have untreated cavities.
But parents have to realize, baby teeth, sometimes they think, well, it's a baby tooth, I don't need to do anything about it. That's not true. The last baby teeth don't fall out to age 12. So if you have a cavity at age 4, that's a guarantee, and you don't do anything, that's a guaranteed emergency before age 12.
But Mother Angela Fitzgerald and her sons were the only takers at this free clinic. The recent federal report and Indiana Medicaid say too many families struggle to find participating dental providers or don't know the importance of early dental care. But changes are coming to the Indiana Medicaid benefit plan that could help recruit providers to the program. Indiana Medicaid Director Joe Mosier says there are a number of reasons providers don't participate.
Payment rates, reimbursement rates that Medicaid pays to those providers, could be administrative barriers that they perceive as being a Medicaid provider. Or it could be concerns they have with the population served and whether they want to serve those populations or not.
Mosier says dental benefits will be provided through contracts with care plans that will help ensure more kids are getting the services they need.
We think improvements in quality outcomes. We can now monitor how the health plans are performing in a way that traditional Medicaid is not very good at doing. We can hold the health plans accountable for achieving better outcomes, and we can ask them to help us recruit more dental providers into their networks.
Those changes will come through in 2017. Federal recommendations for improved dental service also include outreach clinics, like the Marion County Clinic Fitzgerald and her 3 sons took advantage of.
And how often are you supposed to brush your teeth?
Really?
Huh?
Really often?
Okay, but twice a day at least, right? Okay.
Marion County held 4 clinics for Dental Health Month this February. A total of 57 families participated. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Jill Sheridan.
Harsh winter weather can be detrimental to vineyards. With warm days in March and now sub-freezing temperatures in April, crops are more vulnerable than ever. Lindsay Wright reports.
There's nothing but sunshine pouring over the Creek Bend vineyard today, but at night it can get pretty chilly. When the temperature dips to 32 degrees, vineyard manager Bernie Parker is alerted and he flips on the frost fans.
It'll actually pull that warmer air down and move it in the vineyard.
Creek Bend, which grows grapes for Oliver Winery, has 2 fans that turn 360 degrees in about 3 minutes and are just one of the methods for protecting crops from frost damage, something growers are paying close attention to. Parker says he's not too worried about damage at this point because most of the grapes have yet to bud. And in that case, the colder temps can sometimes even be a good thing.
This year, the cold temperatures came in before everything really started to leaf out. So it actually helps to slow down the budding process, especially stuff that is not in full bud swell. And so we're not really going to get as much damage as long as the temperatures remain at the mid to upper 20s range.
Although Parker expects a normal crop season of about 200 tons this year, it's still early. One of the 17 types of grapes produced at this 50-acre vineyard is the Marchal Foch right next to me. It buds earlier than the rest and can be an indicator of frost damage. For the other types of grapes, they won't know the damage for another 1 to 2 weeks. Parker will know for sure if there's been damage by the beginning of May. That's when the frost season ends. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Lindsay Wright.
And a North Lawrence Community Schools teacher gave students a challenge this week that threw some of them for a loop. They had to build a miniature roller coaster using foam tubes. The goal was to get a ball to pass through the coaster with no assistance. Students used recent lessons in math and science to figure out how to keep the ball moving.
You gotta have just enough potential energy to build up all the kinetic energy and go.
There's only one small part of will the roller coaster work. The major part will be, are the people working together? Are they including everybody in their group? Does everyone have a part in it?
How well the teams worked together played a larger role in the team's scores than whether their coasters actually worked. And Barbara, so you were there. I'm really curious because we didn't get to see the end result. Did they actually get them going?
Some of them did, and they had different strategies. A lot of the kids, you saw them standing on tables, picking the tallest kid to put the top of the coaster on top. But what I thought was really interesting, the teacher said these high ability kids, they don't always work well in groups with other students like themselves. And so it was a good exercise for them to be patient and learn how to work with other students as well.
Very nice. Thanks, Barbara. And that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: IU Health Southern Indiana physicians, primary care and specialty care providers now accepting new patients in Bloomington and throughout South Central Indiana. siphysicians.org. IU Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, working to improve cybersecurity and provide policy guidance through partnerships with industry, government, and academia.
Smithville Fiber, the Gigacity Company, fiber internet, HD, and digital IPTV in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.